How would you define enterprise architecture?
Enterprise architecture has two goals or two roles. The first one is being a regulator, keeping everything in control in business and IT. And the second one is being the innovator, by being innovative in real business cases, using new technologies and business trends.
What are the typical tools you would use to architect your enterprise?
Well, there are no specific tools, and usually I say to my colleagues that the biggest tool that we are using is PowerPoint, due to the fact that you are usually in that part of the feasibility studies which are not yet structured. So it's more about methods to, let's say, make the strategy explicit, that we use methods like the Canvas method or that business end-to-end business value streams, but it's simply done on a whiteboard or with PowerPoint slides.
Is enterprise architecture mainly a business or an ICT discipline?
The discipline of enterprise architecture started 20 years ago, let's say, as a purely IT discipline, mainly focusing on data management. It was the time of the Bachmann frameworks. And then 10 years after, in the beginning of 2004, we made a big shift to the service orientation. It was the start of TOGAF, and we had already then, let's say, a distinct business aspect area. But very recently, we made a shift to enterprise business architecture due to the fact that, let's say, enterprise architects of IT and business architects are very near to each other. They are each other's peers.
What are the main issues or problems for enterprise architecture?
The biggest problem is that we have to prove the value of investments on the longer run in a context where business, especially now in the crisis, is focusing on short-term revenues. And that's very difficult to understand for them.
Is there an issue in finding the right people to do enterprise architecture?
I don't think it's an issue to find the people with the right skills, although they are very scarce, of course. But it's more about how to prove your value in a tangible way to business managers, because they are just looking to their P&L and to their KPIs that they have to fulfill.
How would you simply explain enterprise architecture to your CEO?
But if my CEO would ask, how can you help me as an enterprise architect? I would tell him, I can make your strategy explicit and help you to communicate it to all the business departments and translate it in an implementation roadmap. And if there is no enterprise architect doing that, nothing will happen with the strategy.
How do you justify an investment in enterprise architecture in your organization?
Well, if it's a purely investment from an architecture point of view, it's not done anymore, because we don't do architecture for the architecture. It's not enough to being in control and being compliant with a lot of rules. No, every investment should always have a step towards business value, what we call business outcome driven.
How would your organization be different without enterprise architecture?
Without enterprise architecture, I guess there will be a lot of disorder amongst different business units operating like silos, with a lot of redundancy, a lack of integration. Let's say it would be totally out of control.
Could you name 3 KPIs that you use to assess the value of your architecting efforts?
The first one, if I would think about KPIs to measure enterprise architecture, which is very difficult because it's not always so tangible, the most important one would be the degree of innovation. How do we have been innovative in the past year? What did we deliver? How could we translate technology or business innovation in pure business value? And a second one could be how stable are we? What is the let's say the IT cost ratio, and are we in a good shape or good health there? And then you have the two aspect areas, being the regulator and being the innovator.
When would someone be a good enterprise architect?
I would be a good enterprise architect when I'm capable to listen to my customer, when I understand his context, and and I can provide him, let's say, a concrete solution which is affordable by the business case, without forgetting the long-term strategy, of course. But the focus should be on the problem and not on the strategy.
What are the most important skills of a good enterprise architect?
A good enterprise architect should be, of course, be very skilled in analytic skills, having a lot of experience in business and IT domains, but beside that, you should also have a lot of social skills, being fluent in communication, and also be very customer intimate.
How many enterprise architects do you have in your organization?
For the moment, we have a team of 12 enterprise architects, and they are divided in 3 distinct groups, each focusing on another aspect area. One group is focusing on the internal IT, a second group is on the regulation, focused on the regulation of the business application landscape, and the third one, very recently, is focusing on enterprise business architecture.
Governance. Where is enterprise architecture situated in your organization?
Enterprise architecture today is situated in the IT department.
Is that a good choice?
Well, due to the fact that we are shifting more and more towards business enterprise architecture, it's very hard to be accepted by business to be the one who is facilitating them to define business strategy. So I think after a while or over time, we should consider to put enterprise architects from IT and business together in one department in staff.
So I take it your enterprise architects report to the CIO.
Hierarchically, it's done to the CIO that we report, but let's say for the big decisions, they are always prepared by the enterprise architects, but the final decision is taken on a dedicated architectural body, and there you have as well business IT participants.
How exactly, in broad terms, are decisions made about enterprise architecture?
Usually enterprise architectural decisions about new policies, standards, also about breaches against them are prepared by the architects in the field or in a broad architectural community, and then the final decision about it is taken on an architectural decision body.
Who is responsible ultimately for enterprise architecture decisions and outcomes?
Ultimately, it's the enterprise architectural department who is responsible for the offer of the frameworks, the guidelines, the policies, the standards, and also about the coordination amongst it. But it's ultimately the domain architect of the business unit or business domain who is responsible for the implementation.
How does enterprise architecture link with other enterprise disciplines? And I'm going to just name 3: strategic planning, portfolio management, and business process management.
The enterprise architect is capable to translate the strategy of business and IT into a comprehensive view that can be translated towards an impact on business processes as well as on the application portfolio management. And it's based on that impact analysis that he can create a roadmap of projects to realize it.
Are the people that do process management at KBC, are they the same people that do architecture?
Well, today we have in KBC still a distinction amongst architectural roles in business and IT, but what we see is that they are more and more becoming each other peers. IT architects have a lot of knowledge about business. They know a lot about products, services and processes. And on the other hand, business architects know a lot about the possibilities of digitalization and IT. So more and more they're becoming more and more overlapping, and that's why we think after a while they become one department doing the same role.
If you would look at the current initiatives, how do you currently try to embed or anchor enterprise architecture in the organization? Make it a fundamental part of the way you do things at KBC?
The problem with enterprise architecture in KBC is that it's not one department unifying everything. So we have a federated model of different departments scattered over different units, business and IT. So we have a strategy department of macroeconomics who are defining the high-level strategy of the bank. We have an organization department, they are defining the architecture of the organization, which is a part of the business architecture. We have IT architects, we have domain architects, and to make this work, we needed to make the target operating model very explicit and having good agreements with our partners, that we know exactly who is accountable for what, so that we can, let's say, collaborate in harmonization.
How passionate are you about enterprise architecture?
I am very passionate about enterprise architecture, and I try every day to make it as visible as possible, so that I can be a testimonial in real life practice. And I don't like to be in an ivory tower. You don't do architecture in an ivory tower. You do it in the field, in the mud, together with the colleagues.
Is there anything else you want to share in terms of insights and experience with working with enterprise architecture?
Well, I would say if someone of you is thinking about becoming an enterprise architect and you think that you're capable, don't hesitate. It's a hell of a job and a lot of discussion. It's worth doing it, and there's a lot of satisfaction.